President Trump's promise to let our healthcare system collapse is just mind-boggling. It's hard to believe that he could say something like that. President Trump's promise to let our healthcare system collapse is so wrong on 3 counts. It's a failure morally, it's a failure politically, and it's a remarkable failure of presidential leadership. First, the president's position is a moral failure. It's morally wrong to intentionally undermine the healthcare system in this country, using Americans as political pawns in a cynical game. It's morally wrong to play a political game with the health care of this country. There is no religious teaching or moral precept that could advocate such a cynical ploy. The president didn't say he wanted the system to change in a way to make it better. He said, I've lost, and I'm going to make things worse for everybody to show you that I should have won. As I said, that is a moral failure that none of our religious leaders of any of the great religions would ever accept, nor will the American people. Second, saying I'm not going to own it won't work politically. The president is the president. He's in charge. Americans look to him for leadership, and they know that Republicans control both branches of Congress and the White House. They know they're in charge. Earlier this year, the Kaiser Family Foundation found that 2/3 of Americans would blame President Trump and congressional Republicans for the future problems in our health care system. Just as they blamed President Obama when he was in charge, they're going to blame President Trump when he was in charge. His tweeting away that someone else is to blame when he's in charge will not work politically, particularly when it comes to something as near and dear to Americans as health care, God's great gift to us, life itself. So it just won't work saying that Democrats are to blame. And believe me, we're not going to stand idly by and shrug our shoulders when American people are suffering because the president is sabotaging our health care system for political purposes. We're going to point it out, and the spotlight will be on those who the American people in November put in charge. Elections do have consequences, and one of the consequences, Mr. President, one of the consequences, Mr. Trump, is that you're in charge, and you got to make things better, not simply point fingers and tweet. Finally, the president's position is an astonishing failure of presidential leadership. His own party has failed to pass a bill. His own party, which controls both houses of Congress. His own party, which used special rules designed to exclude Democrats from the beginning. And President Trump blames Democrats and threatens to hold our nation's health care system hostage out of pique. Out of pique. The president was being petty. The president was being small. The president was not presidential at all. The president would rather throw up his hands than roll up his sleeves and get to work. He would rather cast blame and point fingers than even try to work with Democrats to make the health care system better. That's not what presidents do. It shows a tremendous lack of leadership. The American people want their president to lead. The American people, when there's a problem, they want the president to fix it. The American people know that when you face a defeat as president, you don't just sit in a corner and pout and get angry. You go on from there and try to make things better, as I hope my colleagues on this side of the aisle will do. Some of them have indicated they will. Let's recall another president, President Truman. President Truman famously said, "The buck stops here." He was admired for it. This president's words, shirking responsibility, casting blame, were exactly the opposite of President Truman's. The buck stopped here, made President Truman look tall. President Trump's blame game makes him look small and diminished. And people will just begin totally to realize his lack of leadership, and the respect for him and his office will diminish. The president should rise to the incredible responsibility of the office, not quit and take the ball home every time the game isn't going the way he likes. The President of the United States, for better or for worse, is responsible for the health care of the country, for the health care of Americans who voted for him and for Americans who voted against him. He took an oath to faithfully execute the laws of this country, not just the ones he likes. There is no ducking responsibility as president. The buck stops with you, President Trump. So if the procedural votes fail next week, I sincerely hope that my Republican friends here in Congress reject the premise of the president to let our health care system collapse and hurt millions. Instead, I hope they work with us in the areas I mentioned and many others to do what's right for the American people. According to the majority leader, there won't be a vote on the motion to proceed to the health care bill until next week. In the time between now and then, my Republican friends have a choice to make about how they want to move forward on what looks like will be a failed vote. Do they want to take the path of President Trump, who yesterday said he wanted our health care system to fail? Or do they want to work with Democrats on legislation to improve the law? It's that simple. We Democrats know that the Affordable Care Act isn't perfect, and we've proposed specific legislation that could pass right now to stabilize marketplaces and lower premiums for Americans across the country. These proposals are specific, non-ideological, and could pass quickly and make life better for millions of Americans. A decent number of Republican governors and even senators have said that these are the kinds of proposals we need. Here they are. First, we've proposed a bill by Senator Shaheen that would guarantee the premium reduction payments that insurers say is the #1 thing we could do right now to stabilize the individual marketplace. Second, we proposed a bill by Senators Carper and Kaine that would create a reinsurance program for the individual health insurance market, again aimed at stabilizing the marketplaces. And third, we proposed a bill by Senator McCaskill that would enable any American living in a bear country, that is a county, a bear county, a county that lacks health insurers, to purchase the same insurance we get here in Congress. All three of these would stabilize the markets and help to prevent premiums from going up further and coverage from decreasing. They address the actual issues in our health care system. And so I've mentioned, they're non-ideological and exactly the kind of legislation we could work on together. If our intent is to make things better, this is something we can come together on, all three of these proposals. They address the actual issues that we have and should be an immediate thing that we can do together. The Republican approach, decimating Medicaid to give a tax break to the wealthy, doesn't solve any of the problems Republicans claim to be so worried about: high premiums, high deductibles, bare counties. In fact, by most objective reports, it makes them worse. The CBO said that under each version of the Republican plan, premiums would go up on many Americans, deductibles and copays would go up, and there would be even more bare counties than today, and tens of millions would lose insurance. Repealing the health care law without any replacement is even worse. It would cause our health care system to implode, creating chaos. Millions more would lose insurance, And for millions more than that, coverage would be diminished. All of that even worse than under the Republican bill. So, I hope that my colleagues will join with us in working on these three non-ideological, practical problem solvers that will reduce premiums and make health care better for many, many Americans. Many Republicans, again, have spoken favorably of these ideas, and I hope that we will go forward